Okay, right. I'm gonna get, okay. Screen should be coming up in just a sec. We've got lights, it's all good. Do I have camera and action? Oh, high-speed moving people suggest that things are gonna happen any second now. It's always nice to see the backstage people running fast. That means something's gonna happen. Okay. Aha. So, this is a game which we developed for stadiums. It's not really quite designed for this particular layout, but here I've got the crowd interacting with the game. This is a very simple game. These are just beach balls that you should be able to hit and move around. There's a little bit of noise in the environment, but I can show you what's going on. This is the difference image. This is the information the computer is using to work out what you guys are doing. It then interacts, seeing the white areas, and moves the balls around. With this, I can do some interesting gaming. I can start augmenting what you see with computer information. Here I've got beach balls augmenting the ground here. Now, if someone actually came in and started looking at you guys as you jump around and move about, which isn't a little bit of waving, when you get a crowd of 300 or 400 people waving constantly and jumping up and down, particularly 10-year-old kids love this, they lose themselves in the game. The augmented reality becomes what's on screen, and you see yourself as part of the game, and the game is part of your world. So in this talk, I'm going to be talking about augmented reality and the various options, the ways of calculating it, and the ways we connect digital worlds with the real world. So, let's augmented reality. That's a quick visual of some augmented reality. Augmented reality is a spectrum. We have virtual reality, which was really hyped in the 1980s, right? In the 1980s, we were all about virtual reality. We'll all be completely embedded, wearing full suits, and all have all these sensors, and we'll be in this virtual world. Never really did very well, right? Virtual reality was a bit of a flop. And so we're looking at how can you use that digital information? How can you connect the digital world of your games with a rich experience that we have in real life? And there are three general areas: visual, audio, and tactile. What I can see, what I can hear, and what I can touch. And we sit on a spectrum between the real world and the virtual world. Augmented reality is the idea that we take the real world and we add some digital information to it. There's augmented virtuality, which is where you take the virtual world and you add little bits of the real world to it. Right? So you're in a virtual world, but you take pictures from the real world. And you can see this in things like Google Maps, where you're taking pictures from the real world and putting it onto the virtual Earth. Right? So that's augmenting a virtual world with little bits of real world information. What we're looking at is how you augment the real world with bits of virtual information. So this idea of mixed reality. We've been having a lot of information in movies. You've seen this for a while. The Matrix, of course, is a standard virtual reality. You plug the big plug in the back of your head and you're inside the virtual world. The Terminator movies were great because they introduce augmented reality. The Terminator wanders around, and as he looks at things, you get information about them. Now, we're actually getting pretty close to being able to implement some of the Terminator augmented reality interfaces. some of what the Terminator was doing, we can start to do now. If that connects. Yaha! Okay, so there are current technologies that are doing augmented reality. I'm going to show you a couple of them. There's gaming, there's mobile stuff. I've got a mobile phone, an HTC Hero, and it has Layer on it. Layer is an augmented reality tool that I currently loaded up, and if I can find it here. Layer overlays information about the world through the video camera of the device. And so I can search for things like pizza within a 3-kilometer radius and go apply, and then on my phone, I will get a wee map that shows me where in my world that is. So I look through my camera, right? I have a camera, and it's looking at me currently. I look through my camera, and I see the world, and I add information to it. Now, apparently, it found no pizza places within 75 meters of here. Okay. That's probably true. Layer is one of those. There are, Google is starting to do this, GeoVector. There are a bunch of companies that are using mobile phones to do augmented reality. Games such as the PSP's Invisibles, and I'll switch over to this to show it off. Seeing I can use the camera. Okay, so this, oh, you guys can't see that. This is a PSP game, which you can kind of see, and it's looking for this kind of marker. This marker is something that it can identify in the real world. And in this game, I've just captured a new invisible. And what it does is it's saving. It looks for if I can keep pressing the button until something useful happens, it's looking for those markers. Now with those markers, I can see if I've got the bug. Okay. It can now show you on that screen, really blurry, but there are now 3D characters on that screen that I'm going to fight with. Now, I can move this around, and I can move around those characters. Right? This is what augmented reality gaming has started to be. Right? We're able to now have a game where I can use this to look at a virtual 3D models on the table. I can also do that with a model viewer. One of my students is working on this. What this allows me to do is to take, again, square markers and calculate where the camera is in relation to the real-world object. And then I can put things on that real-world object, like, okay, where is it? It's really bright. It's kind of hard to get it to, there we go. There's a cookie on that object. And if I get some better lighting, can I get whoa, I can kind of, hopefully, show these guys standing on that marker, moving my hand back and forth. I can see them over there. I can turn it around, see them around the back. Right? This is fairly prototypish, and it's in the early stages of development, but I can take any model, put that on there, and then look at that model from other angles. And if it's on the table, and I've got it there, I can have them standing on the table, and you can do some interesting things like having them walk around on the tabletop and those kind of things, right? So this is augmenting the table with a couple of digital characters. Okay? This is augmented reality. As part of our development, what we're looking at is how you can take this kind of augmented reality interfaces, these kind of markers, these kind of games, what you can do with them. What is going to be the next kind of games? So, augmented reality, you have the process, which is you take some way of detecting the world. My phone uses GPS. It uses its camera. It uses a rotation and tilt sensor. Okay, so I do a detection of the world. I update the digital world by using what I've detected, and then I display it. Now, I either display it on the computer screen, I display it up here, I display it in headsets, I display the digital world overlaid with the real world. We're using this for blind navigation, right? Where if I can overlay touch information about the world with the digital information, if I'm doing Google Street View and I'm doing a walkthrough where I've got a path, a blind person can't see that path. So what you do is as you move the phone around, it uses it like a radar. As I come up to the path, it shakes. And that augments my reality. It augments my touch sense with the ability to feel the digital world, feel the path in front of me. So we can augment reality to help blind people, we can augment reality to have fun, and we can augment reality to give additional information. Now, the beach ball game that we started with, most of the iToy games actually just do the 2D screen. And I showed you the difference image. The iToy was just using the difference image. The Z camera in the Natal uses mostly the difference movement, but it also looks at a very rough Z depth. It looks at the infrared that's being reflected from you. Right? It gives a depth value, but it's very rough. And what you do is you create a digital replica of the person in the computer. So the Natal has a figure standing in front of a virtual environment, in front of its virtual screen, and when you move, it uses that information to update the digital world, and then shows you in the world as that digital character. In the ball game there, we create a model of a room, and we throw those digital balls into that room, and what we do is get the information on how those move around by reading the video stream. Right? So it's about matching a digital world with a real world. How do you know how to match the two? Well, one way is using these AR markers. Right? If you know what this marker is, if I know that it's square, I can get a lot of information about this marker from the video feed. What I start with is I threshold the image so they look for white and black. That's why this is black and white, because I threshold, get a black and white image, and then I blur it so that I don't have too many individual pixels. And then I look for black areas and light areas. And all of those become potential candidates for being a square. Once I've worked out which blob, right, which of those blobs actually happen to form a square, I throw the lines down the edges of the white area and see how square-like they are. If they're pretty close to being a square, that's probably a marker. If it's a marker, I then get the 4 points, the 4 corners. Right? Once I know where those 4 corners are, I do a back projection. I project back from the way the camera sees the world to know that if it's perfectly square and straight on, then these will form a nice square in the digital image. If I lay it back like that, these two are closer to you, so they're further apart, and these two are further away, so they're closer together. I can do that calculation in the computer and work out the relationship between the square that I'm seeing and where your camera is. how you're looking. So I do that math, and I get back a matrix. I get back a matrix that says the camera is up here in relation to the marker here. Once I know that orientation, I then use that in my OpenGL and my DirectX and my game to tell me where the player camera is. And this is what you can do with augmented reality. You say, okay, if I know where the camera is, I can place that in my digital world and get digital images out of it. So I can play AR Quake, right? I can play augmented reality Quake where I run around in a real world with my GPS location, my camera determined by my head location, and I can augment what you see with a Quake game. I can add information. Now, this is just one way of doing it. The markers are a nice, simple, easy way of doing it. We're getting better. We're getting to be able to track corners of rooms. One of the things we know about most human buildings is they have straight lines. If you can detect the straight lines, you can detect the corners. If you can detect the corners, you can find out where the camera is. It's all about the camera. Once you find out where the camera is, you know where the player is and where they're looking. And then you can put that in your digital world. Of course, this is a bunch of complexity that you need to do a bunch of vector math. So you need to do the math, and we keep talking about math. In computer science and in programming and in game development, we talk about having to understand math. And unfortunately, it's just going to get worse. With augmented reality coming along, with this stuff coming along, you need to understand how to translate between the 3D models you're creating and the way they interact with real people, with the real world. And this bunch of maths is related to vectors, it's related to quaternions, if you're getting really nasty. And it's stuff that can now be done on mobile phones. The fact that it can be done on mobile phones opens up a huge opportunity for gaming. We call this pervasive gaming. This opportunity to connect what you do, instead of sitting, I mean, this land's pretty cool, right? But we're all sitting inside and we're all lined up here. It would be really interesting if instead of having the Counter-Strike and having the Modern Warfare 2 with people sitting at the keyboard, actually running around, shooting each other, and having it registered and being able to see where people are, and actually use real objects as cover. Now, augmented reality, finding where the camera is and finding what the world is doing and modeling the world allows us those opportunities. So, hopefully, in 15 years' time, when you guys come back to the gathering, there'll be actually an indoor arena like this, and there'll be the outdoor arena. And in the outdoor arena, you'll have the headsets, you'll have cameras, you'll have the chest sensors to give you the impacts when you get shot. You'll have the plug in the ear to hear what's going on, and you'll have sensors and monitors on your location so that the people in here can watch their players, right? Can support individuals as they move around. The AR drone is part of this idea. The AR Parrot drone is augmented reality because it has a single camera on the front there. Right? It's a helicopter, so it's got 4 big blades, 4 helicopter blades, which keep it stable in the air. And it's got a wee camera that allows you to fly it around, and it keeps itself stable. So the idea is that it sits there hovering, and then you drive it around and it moves around. And its goal is actually to try and help people create augmented games by giving you a view on the world. And because it's got GPS information and tilt and rotation and hover information, it knows where it is in the world, it knows where it's looking in the world. So if I build, like I did for the beach balls, a model of the auditorium, and I put the AR drone into it, I can put digital information into that world, and I can have the drone show that to me as I fly around. Right? So at the moment, it's just used for fun because it's awesome to fly a helicopter around, and you could fly around in here and fly around and hover and watch over people's shoulders and do that kind of stuff, right? Which is awesome. But in the future, you'll be able to fly around and see additional information. perhaps one of the really neatest projects that is out there, and this is something if you look at the TED Talks, the ideas worth sharing, the TED Talks, the Sixth Sense system from MIT is an augmented reality system. What this does is you wear a necklace with a mini data projector. Right? It's a micro data projector that you wear around your neck. It's got a camera and a data projector. As you wander around, it's doing face recognition, wall recognition, corner detection. It knows its position, it knows where you are. And so what you can do is you can project into the world, you augment the world with information, and use the camera to get information back. So he turns his hand into a dialing system for a phone, because he pulls his hand up, the data projector projects out numbers, I take my finger and I press on my hand, and I press where the numbers are, because my camera is working out the relationship between what it's projecting and my finger obscuring that. So the idea here is that I create a world that's augmented, a world that has additional information. In the middle there, the guy with the student written on his t-shirt, that's actually being projected from the guy in the black t-shirt. It's being projected onto him. So the idea here is that it's done facial recognition. The camera can detect the faces, because all of you, if you're going to a Hoogskole, have a student ID card. You've got a photo in a database. I can take a camera, detect where your face is, take that face, match it to the student database, get your student number back. With the student number, I can probably find a Twitter feed, I can find your Facebook page, I can find a tag cloud about you. So what I do is when I come up to you, I see the camera sees your face, it detects who you are, it projects your tag cloud of my relationship to you onto your t-shirt. Right? So I wander up to you and it says, oh, this guy is a student, he's studying these courses, he's just broken up with his girlfriend, according to Twitter, he's just had a really hard night. So as a lecturer, this could be quite useful, right? Because I could come up to you and go, okay, best not to talk about the assignment, because I've got more information. And that's the augmentation. If I can add the digital information to the real world, I can suddenly start doing some really neat things. The fact that in this room there are hundreds of people playing games, I could augment already this room with the high scores on each computer. All of these computers could be tagged with where they are sitting. Right? They already know which row you're in. You would know by the player which place they're in. And so I could, in theory, hold up my phone, look around the room, and see all the high scores above everybody's computer. And I could just switch between which games I was looking at. Right? Trackmania, yeah, okay, right? I could scan around. That's what we'll be able to do very shortly as more databases become available online. There's a huge amount of information about each one of you, as well as about the real world that's available. And if we connect it to phones, to heads-up displays, to cameras and glasses, Nokia is developing some stuff for AR with their phones. Vuzix has some really nice, if you're interested in doing some AR stuff, Vuzix sell AR glasses which have dual cameras, right? Because they're not quite at the see-through lenses yet, but what they do is they have two cameras. The cameras view the world, they project that world into the lenses, right? So you get some LCD screens quite close to your eyes. And what I do is I then augment the world with what the digital information is from where I am. The idea of having information displayed onto your glasses, so you have a wee laser that sits just underneath the glasses lens, and it projects information onto your glasses, and that becomes your heads-up display. Again, a camera looking at the world, knowing where I am. At Chai last year, they had smog data. They have hundreds and hundreds of sensors around the city that are constantly recording air quality. So what they did is they made a wee augmented reality app that you could pull up your phone, look down the street, and see how good the air was. Right? See where the good air was and the bad air was. Actually look around the city and work out, as you wandered around, where you should walk. They've got this for traffic data. the fact they've got GPS in cars means that I know where a lot of the cars are. I know when they're stopping, I know when they're starting. So now we augment traffic data onto maps. This is coming to the phones. This is coming to your personal device. This is coming to your eyepiece. Now, the talk I gave about the BCI stuff was saying that, yeah, we're going to have EEG on a headset. We've already got cameras and LCD screens on our headsets. That EEG stuff is just going to add into this. It's all going to connect together. Once you have these Vuzix headsets, one of the nice things, they've got a wee tilt sensor. You can play, currently, using the tilt sensor, your first-person shooter games immersed. So you put the headset on, and you look around. Again, knowing where the camera is, knowing where the camera's looking, I can change the camera in the digital world. So I can sit in my chair and look around as if I'm in the game. What we're missing is that when I stand up and walk around, it doesn't follow me, right? It doesn't change my location. It just knows where my camera is looking. If I have a built-in sensor that tells me where I am in a room, I can use that to update my position in the game. So I can play Pac-Hatton, a game where you play Pac-Man around Manhattan. What they did is they got a whole bunch of students. They got 4 students as a ghost. 1 student is Pac-Man, and he ran around the streets picking up pallets because the pallets were geolocated. Right? You knew where the pallets were, you knew where he was, you knew where he was looking, so he can run around being Pac-Man. And the ghosts can chase him because they can see where he is down the street there, because it overlaid in their information a big Pac-Man above his head. So when you come to university, hopefully, well, when your children go to university, and I'm wandering around, they'll suddenly see a big yellow exclamation mark above my head, right? Because I'm a quest giver, right? I tell people what to do, right? That's my job as a lecturer. So when you wander around campus, you'll see some big yellow quest giver markers. I'll be one of them. And you'll see other people with additional information about them, additional markers. You'll see a timetable. When you come to class, you won't just be looking at the screen. I'll have information popping up beside me about what's going on. You'll look around and other students will have information about them because your machines, your devices, your glasses will be connecting to the cloud, to that huge cloud of data. And having suddenly free access to massive amounts of data allows augmented reality to do some really, really fun and exciting things. So, the future. Well, hopefully, part of that future will be playing games in the real world, actually getting physically fit while you're getting mentally fit. There'll be real-time tracking of information so that when I run around and I've got my graphics cards that are pumping out huge amounts of data, I can use that to track where I am. When I'm doing military exercises and I'm doing pervasive games, the military guys here, there's a lot of work in AR in the military, and what they're looking at is when you've got a tank unit, you want to look and see who are the friendlies, right? Friendly fire's a big problem, right? You don't really want to kill people you know. So they want to look and see that spot over there actually has a big bubble saying friendly. Right? I want to augment what I can see with information about the world. In pervasive gaming, I can do things like say, okay, I'm going to play Quake now. Everyone else who is registered for Quake within my region gets updated that I'm now a player. And when they look at me through their gaming glasses, they see me as a fully kitted out Quake player with all of my weapons. Right? Or a fully kitted out Counter-Strike player. And I can start playing in that world. This is technology that allows you to do ad hoc things. It allows you to connect virtual worlds with real worlds. The research that we're doing, this is part of research for education. We're looking at how we can get kids to interact with 3D objects. Currently, the mouse and keyboard is actually a pretty clumsy way of rotating 3D objects. Right? You've got the whole, when I move this way, does it spin, does it rotate? When I've got to click various buttons to try and get it to grip the object and spin it round, and I get all these issues of how I control a 3D object with a 2D interface. Because this is a 2D interface. Right? That's what it does 2D. So there's a lot of 3D mice interfaces out there that you try and develop, This is a 3D object. I can lift it up and down, I can rotate it, I can move it in space. If the camera can detect all of that, then I've got a perfect interface with 3D objects. So what we're doing is we're looking at how we use it for education. We're also looking at how we augment medical equipment. Right? If I'm actually operating on someone, it'd be really neat, instead of having to cut them open to see where my knife is, I can just insert the device, have it sort of wiggle around, and then have a screen sitting over top of them with the X-ray information, and so I can see through into their body by augmenting the real world. There is a use already currently in Japan for augmented reality for gay men. And the idea is that in your phone, you put in your preferences. And you put that in your pocket, and it knows your location. And when you get to within 20, 30 meters of someone else who matches your profile that you're interested in, your phone buzzes and their phone buzzes, and you both look up. And the idea is the other person who's looked up is the other gay guy who you might be interested in, right? Because he's just had his phone buzz. Now, this is a way of connecting with people because it's very difficult to connect with relationships in Japan. So they're augmenting reality with a buzz when your phone thinks that you're close to someone you might be interested in. With games, we're getting more and more of this coming along. The porn industry, again, is driving this. Right? AR porn is going to drive a lot of this forward because there's a lot of money in AR porn. And so us as gamers will benefit from that. We don't do any research in that area currently, and I doubt we will in the near future. But the technology, the ability to augment is what we're interested in. And we're interested in how we use that technology to make better games. These games are all awesome, but they're still flat. They're still you sitting at home in front of a screen using this 2D interface, isolated from the world. The future of gaming, the future of connection, is by augmenting our real world. It's by making our world part of our game world. So, my take-home message, the last message from me, is that brain interaction is coming. As game designers, we try and make fair and balanced games. And as game players, you're going to have to get out from behind the screen, you're going to have to get out from your lounge, and you're going to have to start interacting with the real world to get the most out of future games. Thank you.